Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AwardsWatch podcast. This morning were Emmy nominations, and as with any year, shocks, surprises, snubs, obviousness, records, history, everything happened today. And we're going to talk about it. And on this podcast to talk about the Emmys, I have a very, very special guest, someone who's been covering film and television for nearly 20 years. She was previously the awards and audio editor at Vanity Fair, where she worked for more than a decade. She was the founder and co-host of the magazine's Little Gold Men podcast, still the total gold tier. The co-host of two Vanity Fair Oscar party live streams, and the editor of Awards Insider Special Issues, and is now the Anklers Awards editor and host of its brand new, just announced today, Prestige Junkie After Party. Please welcome Katey Rich.
Hello. Wow, what an intro. 20 years, that number really is not untrue, but really pops out about how long I've been doing this.
I usually will try and disguise those kind of numbers because I have to do
Uh,
that myself. And I'm like,
it's
somebody will be, how
fine.
long have you been doing this? I'm like, for a while,
Sometime,
for some time.
I'm old enough to remember No Country for Old Men's Oscar campaign. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
And maybe even more than that for other people on this podcast. Katey, I am really, really thrilled to have you on. Uh, this is your first time. This is really
Yeah.
great. It's all very fresh. And like I said, we just had Emmy nominations this morning
What a
with
day.
some just blowout numbers.
Yeah.
27 nominations for Severance, 23 for the studio. Apple is very, very happy today.
Good year for Apple. And like a bunch of other like random one-offs, like Brian Tyree Henry getting him for Dope Thief, for Kate Blanchett for Disclaimer. Like the Emmy voters are watching Apple shows, even if it sometimes doesn't feel like other people are.
Yes, and Deaf President Now, wonderful documentary, also
Mm.
got in, and sort of is in that place where the Emmys and the Oscars had to do a whole lot of rule changing
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
eligibility, where you could still run and campaign for an Oscar nomination, but if you didn't get it, then you get to go right into an Emmy campaign.
Yeah, having Will and Harper finally get its due, like I didn't expect it to take this, but Harper and Will Go West being a great song and is now nominated for an Emmy. I wish it had been an Oscar, but I'll take
Yep.
it.
I agree. That was the path is not always the obvious one, but sometimes it is made available
Yep.
with these rules. Um, just going right in and not necessarily like snub surprises yet, because we can definitely go into that.
Sure.
Did you find some of the numbers that we saw that were so high being a result of, all right, people are not watching that many shows, or
Mm.
is it really popularity?
That's how it feels a lot of the time, especially when you get some of these acting nomination tallies where it's like, okay, they obviously watched Severance. They nominated three supporting actors from that, or The White Lotus, basically the same thing. It's so repetitive of some of those, but then you get into some of those like Megan Fahey getting in for Sirens. I think that show got four nominations, like not a show I expected to be in there. So, when it's some of these bigger acting categories or the limited series category, which is a little bit less competitive, there are surprises in the mix in there. And you realize that it's when these branches voting, it's maybe only a couple hundred people in some of these cases. Like taste can just be weird. So we can have a sense of who the frontrunners are. Like no one thought Noah Wiley wasn't going to get nominated, but like weird things happen. Interview with the Vampire can get two nominations in technical categories, and like that's kind of the beauty of the Emmys, right? Is the net can get very wide even if it doesn't feel that way at first.
Yes. Justice for Interview the Vampire, though. My God, it should have 10. It should be in that double digit
It
territory.
feels like one of those shows that's growing. Severance is proving that you can grow in your second season. Somebody somewhere getting two big nominations for its final
Yes.
season. Like the road is long when it comes to Emmy sometimes.
Absolutely. And yeah, the Sirens thing is one that really took me off guard
Yeah.
because it got in directing too,
Yeah, it got in and I think it, let's see. I have my PDF with
directing and
this.
writing, and then yeah, and Megan Fahey, which that's a category that only had 5 slots
Yeah.
available,
Yeah.
and there were some big names missing, like Renee Zellweger.
Yeah, I
So,
guess Megan Fahey more or less took Renee Zellweger's slot in some way, which I think says something about Netflix. Like there's also
mhm.
we were talking about Emmy voters watching Apple shows, but I think if you have a show on Netflix, it's just going to be really visible. But also, the Peacock movie that should have been in theaters maybe isn't as compelling a pitch as we thought it was.
Yeah, I think so. And we were talking a little bit before we started recording just about being in LA and FYC events and how May especially is when most of those are all happening.
Hmm.
And what are your thoughts on the impact of those kind of events to sway voters, or at least uh, to introduce them to shows?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll definitely get voters who will show up for an event for a show they might not know anything about because it's being moderated by a celebrity. You bring in Lisa Kudrow to moderate the traders panel, and that will get people to pay attention. Or because there's a buffet sometimes. We've all seen enough people lining up for the food at something. I mean, I went to an event that YouTube put on for three of its shows that were, it was trying to get a nomination, and it didn't pan out for any of them. But, there were so many voters there who I talked to who are like, I don't know what this show is, but I'm here. I'm going to check it out. And I think in the end, these strategists don't really know what's going to move the needle. Like you think you do, but the Television Academy is like 25,000 people. Most of them live in LA, so you can catch a lot of them that way. But in terms of getting people's attention, like it's the hardest job anybody has. So you can guess that those events move the needle, but I think everyone does them just because they don't know a better way to do it.
Exactly, and that is always one of the funny things. And we were also talking about kind of the strangeness of an Emmy season versus an Oscar season, because an Oscar season has a much longer runway, and
Yeah.
you have your precursors that make a lot of sense. And with the Emmys, using the Emmy schedule of June and or September to the end of May, sort of throws that off a little bit, because you
Hmm.
can have SAG and Golden Globes in January, but those are representative of calendar year and not split. And there are
Yeah.
also 6 months prior. So it becomes a little more, I don't know, maybe nuanced if in terms of predicting. Uh
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in terms of just like the amount of categories in there, right? Like, I was looking up Will and Harper documentary. It got like five nominations because it was eligible in all of these different spots. So,
yeah.
and for the most part, no one is sitting down trying to predict like picture editing for a nonfiction special. Like, that's just deeper than most people want to go. But it adds to those nomination tallies. So you can kind of have a hunch of like, Severance has a lot of technical stuff, so it might get a lot of nominations, but it's so much guesswork. And like, I could sit down and try to think of who's eligible for guest actress in an Emmy, but I would rather them just tell me what's in there. And I feel like it's less, not that it's not serious. Winning an Emmy is a serious thing, but trying to predict it and trying to get it right, like, it's just like sillier. Like, no one's going to get it right, so you may as well have fun with it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I do love when the ballots come out and the guest performances already have
Yeah.
their episodes.
Yeah.
That's great, because now what we're going to do for the next uh 2 or 3 weeks is guess which episode people are going to submit for consideration, and that kind of brings up a whole nother issue. And certainly, as somebody who's been doing this and following this for as long as I have, and in the era where they were called tapes because they were actually
Hmm.
videotapes, and how impactful a submission could be to to earn that win.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about 2025 and how important an episode submission is versus voters who just want a person to win or a show to win?
I have this question a lot because I think with some of these things, like with the White Lotus, like Walton Goggins can probably submit his best standout episode, but like people kind of know the White Lotus, like the conversation is around it. There's so much of it that's like baked in there. And then I see things like Giancarlo Esposito getting a guest actor nomination for The Boys, and like that show showed up in a couple places, but it's not obviously like the most watched show of the nominees. And I look at that and think like maybe they just wanted Giancarlo Esposito because they like him to be in there. Like I thought he was great on The Residents. I kind of was rooting for him to get in there. Um, so I'm sure like you have to take them tape seriously, and I think with them being way easier to watch than they used to be, obviously people can go in there and it might help like tip the scales in some way. But like, I think if you really like the Pit, you're going to vote for Sean Hattasey over Joe Pantoliano. And it's not anything specific about the performance that's going to get
Hmm.
there.
Yeah, that's it is. I agree with that, and I always I have a circle of friends that go back, we'll just say a very long time. And so when Edie Falco submitted Whitecaps for her Sopranos, which actually she didn't,
Hmm.
HBO did it for her because
Sure.
she didn't know and she didn't care, and she's like, I don't know, they do it for me. That became the blueprint for submitting episodes.
Hmm.
So every year when we kind of get together and start talking about it, we 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 look at it from that lens of like who has a Whitecaps
Yeah.
submission
Yeah.
that's so undeniable that
Hmm.
nothing else really could sway.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna be diving deep into that over the next couple of weeks. And then I started thinking, I just published a piece on Tremel Tillman today
Hmm.
because he got nominated for Severance. He wasn't
Yeah.
nominated for the first season. And there's never been a black actor that's won that category in
Yeah.
the
Which is
history ever.
wild. Wild.
Several nominees, seven before him, uh, four from who you just mentioned, Giancarlo Esposito,
Hmm.
four nominations in this category. And you're right, they love him.
Yeah. He just kept losing to Aaron Paul, right? Like that's basically why he never won.
Yeah, because three of them were for Breaking Bad, Better Call
Yeah.
Saul,
Yeah.
and then Mandalorian. But I'm thinking of Tillman, and he has some amazing submissions.
Yeah.
And probably the buzziest part of the season was him this year. So
Hmm.
that's a person I wonder where if he submits, the dancing episode,
Yeah.
or the snowy field trip episode, he
Yeah.
could probably win either way because there's something about him.
But do you think it can overcome the incredible amount of attention around Walton Goggins and the White Lotus? Like I feel like it's so hard to compare their performances, right? Like how am I
Yeah.
going to say that what Walton Goggins does is less or more impressive than what Tremel Tillman does? Like, that act acting awards are kind of silly in the first place. But it's such like you have to convince the most people to be swayed in this one direction. And I think you're right that he was such an obvious breakout star of Severance this season. And my theory was that Mission Impossible was going to be a humongous hit and really rocket him. And like I don't know if it was quite big enough to get there. When do we find out what their episode submissions are? Is that on the site now or does it come out later?
Not yet. So now that the nominations are out over the next like 3 weeks, people
Okay,
will be revealing their submissions. And Goldenberry often gets exclusives on those, so
sure.
it's a good place to look.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have them out in a updated piece like I do every year. But yeah, they have like right up until the winter voting starts, which is
Yeah.
mid-August. So there's almost a month really where people can choose.
If the if I thought the television academy was younger, which I don't think they necessarily are, I'm thinking like who is the best GIF? Like whose moment, made with the most viral? And like it's honestly a tough one between Tremel Tillman and his reactions on Severance and Walton Goggins watching Sam Rockwell's speech. Like those both had such I don't know that
Hmm.
that race is down to the two of them. I kind of feel like it is, but it's that tells you the power of what they were doing is that they travel
Yeah,
like that.
I kind of feel like it is too. Bringing up the White Lotus, obviously a huge nomination getter again. And I think people were wondering maybe, is there going to be uh, a a turn down?
Hmm.
But there definitely was not.
Yeah.
And they took up several nominations in supporting actress and supporting actor.
Mm,
But because it's such a huge cast, not everybody could get in. What are your thoughts on the actors who got in and the actresses who got in versus like maybe who missed? Because I think Patrick Schwarzenegger was a pretty viable candidate. And
yeah.
then he misses out to Sam Rockwell, who just barely has to get in because of the 50% rule.
Oh, but and see, I still wonder if Sam Rockwell doesn't just swoop through and win, because of that one scene that he's so good in, which you're totally right that it probably is more in the spirit of a guest role. And I liked Patrick Schwarzenegger on The White Lotus a lot, but like I would not trade anything for that James Marsden nomination, which I don't think anyone saw coming, but I really
Hmm.
loved Paradise. He's so good on it. Like nominations for him and Julianne Nicholson and Sterling K. Brown got in too, right? All three of them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like so well deserved. Like that show deserves maybe almost the same level of credit as The Pitt for like streaming show with the heart of a network show. Like it's such a good combo. So I think Patrick Schwarzenegger will be fine. I was so glad to see James Marsden and Zach Cherry for Severance. Like I thought he
Yes.
was going to keep getting overlooked, and he's really wonderful in this season. So that one I think worked out the way it was supposed to. Supporting actress is maybe where more of the heartbreaking choices had to be made.
A little bit, a little bit. I mean, it's at I'm not a fan of seeing, a single show just dominate and push so many other people out the way that, the White Lotus has and Succession did. And, it's happened in the past. Hill Street Blues and St. Elsewhere and shows like
Sure.
that, LA Law, it used to absolutely dominate these categories when it was only five.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always a little bit of heartbreak in some of the things that miss.
Yeah. Who
Um,
do you think in supporting actress in the drama series, which, had even more White Lotus people, like who missed out on that you wanted to see?
well, I'm not about wanted, but surprised that missed was Allison Janney for The
Yeah.
Diplomat
Huge
because
surprise.
talk about an Emmy favorite. My
Yeah.
gosh.
And now she could have qualified for guest because she's only in two episodes, but she chose to go supporting. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's her choice.
Yeah, well, and also presumably in season three, but given the way that the season ends, like she'll be in more of it and will be much more of a proper supporting contender next season. And like Allison Janney's not going to stop getting Emmy nominations all of a sudden. Like I
Yeah.
consider this a fluke more than
That's
a
kind of why
decision.
it would have made more sense to do guest because then she
Yeah,
could have locked
she could have
that
moved up.
in.
Yep.
And then, yeah, and then next year graduated to supporting because
Yeah.
again, another rule you can't go backwards once that
Yeah.
happens.
It
Yeah.
was it was a gamble, and all respect to her. I would say also Taylor Dearden for the Pit, who I just
That's
thought
exactly.
Mel King on the Pit, so wonderful. I thought she really might get in, but if you're gonna have to pick just one supporting actor from the Pit, Catherine Lanas is a great pick.
She is a wonderful pick. And I do think the Pit got Noah Wiley and Lanasa and Sean Hattasy,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day that's a pretty low acting total for a show that really had and has still so much buzz and attention on it.
Yeah,
And then when you put that against, something like The White Lotus, and maybe it's the legacy of the show, clearly voters are more than willing to give the same show 3 and 4 acting nominations in a single category. So
yeah,
it's hard to say something like, oh, the Pitt actors split their own vote, which, you know, we have perfect evidence of the opposite with other
yeah.
shows. So I wonder if maybe the second season of the Pitt, which is going to have so much going for it, and
Hmm.
especially if it's able to win
Sure.
in top categories, that kind of might tilt,
Yeah.
and the people that missed today, Patrick Ball too, and
Hmm.
might be able to get in.
Yeah, I think it's also a factor with famous people, right? Like the Emmys do a good job of like lifting people up, like Catherine Lanasa, Liza Collinse, as people who've been working in the industry a long time and finally get their moment. But a lot of the people on the pit are unknown and really young, like they haven't been working for a long time. And you compare that to Carrie Coon or Parker Posey or even Natasha Rothwell, like people who've been working long enough, who've been on the show, who've been attached to a big show in this way. I think it's just really hard for some of those younger actors on the pit to be able to compete with that. But the longer the show goes, the more it's like a beloved institution, the easier that gets, I think.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. What were some of your like biggest snubs, either like personally that you've found like a big snub or that just logically really was kind of shocking?
Oh, I had been rooting so hard for Andor. I became a late convert on that show. This past season, I watched kind of all of them together, and I didn't really expect Diego Luna to get nominated in actor in a drama series. It was a tight category. There wasn't a lot of room, but I thought Pedro Pascal was not on that much of The Last of Us. Maybe there's room to swap him out for Diego Luna. It didn't happen. Andor did get a lot of nominations that are well deserved. I loved that the song "We Are the Gore" got nominated, and Tony Gilroy and Nicholas Britell shared that nomination. But
Yes.
the only, Forrest Whitaker got a guest actor nomination, and then Alan Tudyk got nominated for voice acting the droid, which is great, incredibly well deserved. But I wanted so much more for Andor, and it's there's not that many shows anymore that are too good for Emmys. Like the Emmys are good at keeping up, but Andor still just feels like it's too good to get the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really would have liked maybe a little more for Andor because it is such a fun show.
Yeah.
I was, I think, maybe not that surprised, but a little bit by the poor showing for Disclaimer. Really
Yeah.
kind of, it's like Kate Blanchett. That was it. That was
Yeah.
just like some name attachment there. But the big one for me was the FX limited series Say Nothing
Yeah. Yeah.
getting really cooked. It got a writing nomination, but that show won USC. It has
Mm-hmm.
a TCA nomination, BAFTA nominations, a Peabody Award win.
Yeah.
Every single show in history that has that WGA BAFTA Peabody combo has been nominated for series, directing, writing, and acting.
Yeah.
Every one until
Wow.
now. I was shocked.
Do you not? I mean, so I see two reasons for it. Like, it felt like it was quiet even when it came out
Yes.
in fall. Like, it landed a lot quieter than Shogun or something like that. And then FX had its own second limited series of Dying for Sex, which I really loved. It also felt like it was under the radar, but I think had a little bit more recency, had stars in it. And then Adolescence just kind of like took out all the air out of the room for like a topical limited
Yeah.
series, and it just
Yeah.
didn't feel like there was room for another one.
Yeah. I mean, I think adolescence was kind of always going to do that.
Yeah.
It baby reindeered itself this year in a way that
Hmm.
was completely organic. And it's very funny now that we have 2 years in a row where Netflix, who nobody loves to campaign as much as Netflix does, but we have these great examples of shows that were discovered and happened really organically.
Yeah.
And and here we are now.
Yeah, I mean, Baby Reindeer felt like it took Netflix genuinely by surprise. Like, that's not
Yes.
something that their awards reps were really trying to seed beforehand. Adolescence, it was really clear before it premiered, being like,
Yeah.
hey, you need to take a look at this. They were not going to let themselves be totally caught off guard for a second time in a row. And, they really have run a really similar playbook. And Stephen
Hmm.
Graham has been such a great advocate for that show. He's been everywhere. He's really serious about it. It's a really sincere show while also being so flashy. And I don't think Netflix stands a chance in comedy or drama, but they're just gonna run the table unlimited exactly like they did last year. So good for them.
I want to, but before we wrap on some like very early
Sure.
possible winner predictions, we've really mostly talked about, I guess, drama and limited series. And comedy we haven't talked about too much,
Yeah.
and that is where some really big things happened. The
Mm-hmm.
studio getting 23 nominations, the most of any first season comedy in history,
Yeah.
tying The Bear, which rolls perfectly into, by comparison, how poor The Bear did today,
Mm-hmm. I
which
mean, I think
is,
we all thought it was going to happen, right? That their numbers were from last year were going to be impossible to repeat.
yeah, I mean, 23 was the number from last year.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, its first two seasons won 10 and 11, breaking that record. So this drop off is dramatic. It's down 10 from the year prior.
Yeah.
Missing writing, it missed writing.
I know, and its directing nominee is Io Adebari and not Christopher
Yep.
Storer, which I think is maybe the most telling of all of those.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so. So what do you think about that? Do you think, because when there's online buzz and chatter from people that are really just only online,
Hmm.
there's I think they might feel a little bit of vindication, like they saw this coming and felt like it was going to happen,
Yeah.
because there's this seemingly like a downturn on the show. Is that what you think it is, that there's a change in the show in terms of, wow, maybe it really isn't a comedy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would have said the Bears and the comedy buzz was only online stuff until the moment that Hacks won Best Comedy last year, and then you kind of
Yep.
realize that, like, again, 25,000 people from a lot of different parts of the industry, like, I think they are maybe more online than we're used to Oscar voters being. They are more in tune with kind of that general conversation. And that was happening at the same time that season 3 was kind of received much less warmly, and that's the season that we're nominating this time around. And I think it all just kind of added up to people saying, like, I have this exciting new thing in the studio. Like, Hax's numbers were also down. Like the studio in some way kind of ate
Yeah.
the lunch for both of them. But
Yep.
I feel like this was always kind of between Hacks and the studio for the comedy series win, and the Bear being able to kind of like sit down a little bit and not be as strong a player. Like, I still don't know who wins supporting actor in a comedy who isn't Eben Moss-Backrack. Like, there's not an obvious person to come and snipe that. Maybe it's Ike Barinholtz now that the studio is so big, but it does seem like otherwise, like the Bear can just continue to be here, kind of be more like Abbott Elementary, like be included, but not necessarily be expected to be a winner, which I think is okay for the Bear.
Yeah, I mean, even with its comedy series loss last year, it still won. It
Mm-hmm.
still broke that record without that win, which is
Yeah.
wild. So I think this year is going to be really, really interesting, especially since we just had its fourth season in the summer, and that's kind of been the normal thing for it, where
Yep.
it has a new season while the voting on the previous season is happening. And so maybe voters start to feel a little jumbled
Yeah.
about what it is that they're voting for in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I don't know that season 4 really improved the opinion on the show. Like, it felt more in line with season 3. So it feels like that confusion is maybe less significant this time. It's kind of all still in the same place of like, we've
Yeah.
loved this show that has its moments, but it's not at its best right now.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any early predictions in some of these top categories, like drama series? I think we're all thinking it's the Pitt versus Severance, but those are big number differences
I
between these
know.
nomination totals.
I know. I had been really bullish on the Pit as being kind of the David to the Goliath of Severance for a long time, and I still think it has this advantage of when you look at your ballot and you think, which show did I really love? You might be more likely to put down the Pit. So I'm gonna stick with my guns on it and say the Pit for now. Like, it's possible it will become very evident that that won't happen, but also. Phase two Emmys doesn't really make anything that evident. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
we're going to learn about how momentum might change. So I might
Yeah.
just be going on a hunch here. And then I would probably say the studio for Hacks, reversing my logic, saying the studio is like really persuasive nomination total, and it's perfectly inside baseball in a way that Hacks is also. So give one to HBO and one to Apple maybe for those two.
That would be impressive if
Yeah,
Apple could take both of them. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm kind of torn. I was probably very like you, the Pit forward as a
mm-hmm,
as a show that could win. But it missing picture editing
mm,
today, which is
mm-hmm.
strange that you had mentioned picture editing in a
Yeah,
different context earlier. That's kind of a big deal. It's
yeah.
a
The editing on that show is really
range.
good.
of all things to miss. So that was a bit odd. It's happened before. Handmaid's Tale was able to win its first season without that.
Okay.
Very, very buzzy, obviously, in that first season. Um, I think you might be right that the studio is going to be able to win the battle of the Hollywood comedies. Pretty
Yeah.
funny that the top two comedies are both about Hollywood.
Filmed in LA was the big theme of this campaign season. Everyone wanted to talk about how they were a local show.
Absolutely. I think that is a really great point, and I think it's a key point. I was thinking about when I was at the DGA Awards earlier this year, that was such an overwhelming theme.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, right after the fires. Oh my God, that's all anybody was
wow.
talking about. PGA, I was at the PGAs that night. Same thing.
Yeah, that was like all anyone cared about was that. And I think that's going to skew some voters uh
Definitely.
that that live in LA and want to work in LA.
Well, the Pitt's filmed in LA and Severance is not, so maybe that's another data point for you.
There you go. Very good point. Um, Katey, this has been so wonderful to
Oh
have you.
yeah.
This has
Thank
been
you for
so
having
cool.
me.
I mentioned the the Prestige after party newsletter
Yeah.
that you have coming out. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Totally, yeah. So, for the past year since I joined the Ankler, I've had the Prestige Junkie podcast and newsletter. Those are not going anywhere, staying the same, totally free. But we're also launching the Prestige Junkie After Party, which is subscription only, $5 a month. You get bonus video versions of the podcast. You get bonus episodes. Chris Rosen and I, formerly of Gold Derby, will be doing it together. We'll be doing all kinds of fun awards nerd stuff like fantasy drafts and flashbacks to old Oscar seasons and all the kind of
Nice.
like nitty gritty stuff. Maybe some gossip, maybe, sharing our hot takes that we don't feel like we can put out in public. So I think it'll be really fun. I saw that you signed up for it, Eric. Thank you so
I
much.
just did,
I
yes.
appreciate it. And so we'll have our first episode on August 1st. So we're just announcing it
Great.
today, giving ourselves some time to ramp up. And so please join us there. I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. And that's, the other part of that question is where can people find you? So
Yeah.
where can people find you?
Yeah, well, on social media, I'm pretty much just on Blue Sky at Katey Rich. It's KateyRich, and then on Letterboxd in the same place. On Instagram at Katey Rich Talking. But yeah, go find me on Substack at the Ankler, and I'm trying to put as much there as I can because committing to doing a new paid tier of the podcast means I got to do so much content, so I can't give it away for free on Blue Sky anymore.
Exactly. Katey, again, thank you so much for jumping on today during the craziness that
What a
is the
day!
Emmys.
Yeah, I got to go
Uh,
take a walk. I think.
exactly. I can see the outside from my window.
Uh,
I would like to be there
what a
for at
concept.
least a few minutes. So
Yep,
yes.
absolutely.
Great. All right. Well, until next time, and hopefully we can have a return visit from you. But
Yeah.
yeah, please come to awardswatch.com. So we'll have our podcasts and predictions and pieces, several Emmy pieces based on the nominations from today and possible historical things that could happen and context and anything that you might want to know, being an awards junkie that you are if you're listening right now. But yeah, until then, thank you everybody for listening. Bye bye.